Progress.
Hello and welcome to episode 310 of Long Toss. This is the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford, joined with our panelists. And you know what? It was 7-0 Blue Jays going into this fifth inning. I know we're sitting in the sixth right now, and we're just gonna basically do this long toss like they have completely blown it. Even if they do come back from this, I mean, giving up a 7-0 lead in one inning, that is pretty devastating. So if you're looking for positivity, sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately, this is probably not the show for you right now. I know just looking at chat, Deb says, I'm sad. New Brunswick, Canada guy says, this team is getting worse every game. Michael Borland says, what a collapse, LOL. And literally, LOL. Like, we're at a point in the season where you can't even cry about this shit anymore. Like, it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And I'm so glad that we've got our regulars back on the show because everyone is a little bit fired up here and everyone is limping through this to make sure that you, the Blue Jays fans, know that we are with you. We are feeling it too, and hopefully we can figure out where this team is headed. I don't even know if they know. So let's start with the very under the weather, but we're very thrilled to have her, Jen, Baseball Jen on Twitter. Appreciate you roughing it out here. We know your voice might not last this whole episode, and I know the yelling that you have deep within may need to be muted a little bit, but thank you for roughing this out.
I'm going to do what I can to get through this because there's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. Joel, hey, Kami on TikTok, Joel Aflam, welcome back, buddy. Thank you for making time. Unfortunately, not a lot of positivity to talk about here on this episode.
No, absolutely not. Like I said, I'm really late to the party on that comeback.
Joel took a phone call when they were up 7-0
Yeah.
and joined us like a few minutes ago, still thinking it was 7-0.
I came with optimism. I came with 4 innings of optimism. That's all but gone in one inning.
Fresh off a weekend at the cottage, he rushed back to make sure that he could be on the panel and produce the show. So a tip of the hat to you, Johnny, for taking over the production side of things. We do appreciate it. Show a little love to Johnny there, everybody. And if you can hit the like button and subscribe, folks, that's great. Johnny, how was the drive back in, bud?
Oh, easy sailing. Super smooth.
Easy sailing.
Joel's got me thinking that of 4 innings of optimism is the name for a TV show. It could be
Don't
a
bring up that
documentary.
5 innings of heartbreak. Don't you bring up that 5 innings of heartbreak.
It's just a documentary about the greatest 4 innings in one franchise's history. We won't talk about the collapse that happened after, but those 4 innings. The memories.
Least, but definitely not last, from the walk-off Mariners. And fresh off a pretty good weekend in Seattle together. Juan Forno, thanks for joining us, buddy. I know you're on the road right now. Where are you headed? We've lost Juan. This basically
tonight.
Where are you headed, bud? Sorry. All right. Well, yeah, you're in and out, buddy. I'll throw back to you once your connection gets a little better. I know it might be touch and go here, but we'll get right into this because we do have a ton to talk about here. Obviously, the Blue Jays and Diamondbacks series that we just experienced here, and apologies to everyone who is dealing with the overlay being weird right now. Juan is going to rejoin and it will fix everything. In the meantime, this is what you get. So we're going to talk this Blue Jays and Diamondbacks series. We're going to get into the disaster that is this bullpen. I mean, when some of your highest leverage guys are named Ryan Burr and Brendan Little, you know things are in the lurch here. So we will get into it. Deadline moves and who pitches if some of these guys they think are being moved are moved. Can you imagine this starting rotation without Yusei Kikuchi and Chris Bassett in it? Like, I don't even know where they're going to get the innings, so we'll dive into that. We'll do a letter grade on where the Blue Jays are at in numerous places. And I'm going to tell you right now, this report card is not going to be too pretty. The All-Star break is here, and we will check in on the Blue Jays pitching, their infield defense, their outfield defense, the one place where maybe they get a decent grade, bullpen, offense, coaching, and front office / roster construction. We'll do a Seattle Mariners minute, take a look at that. And we'll talk Paul Skeens, starting for the National League, and just where his ceiling, everyone sees that at, and just what a phenomenal talent the kid is turning out to be, living up to all of the hype. I know Juan just texted saying stupid service, so we're working on it, folks. All right. Jen, I know you've been pretty fired up for weeks now, and we haven't had an opportunity between the long weekend on Canada and just nobody being available to host the show last week. So I'm going to start with you here, because this team it feels directionless right now. Obviously, as a fan base, we're not privy to their actual plans and what's going on, but it does sort of feel like Ross Atkins is going to be at the helm and making decisions as we come into this trade deadline, a deadline this team is most likely going to sell at. Where are you at on that? I know you have never been a fan of, or I shouldn't say never. You haven't been a fan the last year and a half of where this front office has taken this team. Where are your frustrations right now with this organization?
I think exactly what you just said. They seem absolutely directionless, and they have in the entire season, right? Things have, forget the entire season. I would say even going back to the off season, going back to last trade deadline, they have not addressed the needs of this team. And I don't know what they think they've put together and put out there on the field for fans, but haven't we all seen enough? Haven't they seen enough? And so, okay, cool. You've come to the conclusion that you are going to be sellers at the deadline, but I think we can all agree that Ross Atkins is not the person we want making those deals, and it certainly looks like he's going to be. It is not common to fire a general manager mid-season, right? So I feel like there's two things that are kind of going on here. One is the need to address what is happening this season, the fact that they're going to be sellers, get rid of certain contracts, but then the elephant in the room of Vlad and Bo. And are you cutting bait? Are you extending? Are you running it back for one more year? And I feel like that's why they're not going to do anything in terms of like getting rid of Ross Atkins right now, is because that bigger piece as to what direction this franchise is going to ultimately go in is going to probably be decided in this offseason. And I'm not sure that it should be, because I think we can all tell. I think 2025 is going to be a write-off. I don't think 2025 is going to be competitive. And I think everything that we've seen, the fact that they took Vladdy to arbitration over $1.5 million tells me exactly what's going to happen with those extension talks, right? And so if you're not serious about this, then start pulling plugs now, get what you can, right? Get all the value, extract all of the value you possibly can, and get on with it. That's where I'm at.
I mean, they absolutely need to get assets for the value that they have right now. They have to. It would be front office malpractice to not do that, especially when you're sitting with a farm system that Baseball America is just called number 24 in baseball, especially when you look at the Buffalo Bisons currently and realize half that team is playing on the Toronto Blue Jays. So I'll throw to you here, Joel. Would you say we're almost at the point where you have to cross your fingers as a fan and hope that Ross Atkins is a puppet, that he has been taken, all of his power has been removed from him, and right now it's Shapiro and who knows who else that's the hand up his butt operating this team going into the deadline? Like that's almost the best case scenario, right? Is that Atkins doesn't have say on moves.
The best case scenario is that your GM isn't your GM. Is that what you're telling me? That's our best
Yeah.
case scenario. Well, like you can't do the in-house move, the move of moving your GM doesn't really happen in season, but we do have one in-house, right? So it is a situation where in-house I trust the other guy just because he's not the current guy, right? I don't know if he's James Click is long-term GM, but maybe you have interim GM. You know, Houston was making moves in the offseason last year without a GM. Calgary Flames were making moves in the offseason this year without a GM. Like, I don't know. The GM's becoming a figurehead position to me, and I'm starting to wonder what some of these guys are actually doing. But yeah, it's a situation where what did you say our ranking was prospect wise? And what was it?
24.
24. And is that accounting for Tiedemann going down again and for Relvis being dinged on steroids?
No,
right?
No, that was the ranking that was put out last month before those two things happened.
Okay, so like really our top two prospects that would put us in that position, dire with both of them. So let's drop us another 5 spots and say we're 28th. And so we're 28th in our farm system, and you expect a front office that's put a 28th ranked farm system together to take assets and build upon that? I don't. So yeah, do I want Shapiro stepping into? I don't think that he is focused on player assessment and who is skilled and who is not skilled. I don't think he has a good understanding of player ability right now. He's focused on completely different aspects. He's focused on architecture for 3 years. So yeah, it's not those two. I don't want those two making.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm almost at the point where I would much prefer to see them go outside of the organization and bring in a brand new voice. I know going to chat here, Michael Borland says, "Did you guys see the tweet put out suggesting Shane Bloom? He doesn't necessarily have a good trade record either. His drafts are good though," which is true. If you look at what Shane Bloom has done draft-wise, and even the fact that he did bring a World Series to the Red Sox, I know that there's a lot of Red Sox fan who don't have good things to say about him from about 2020 on. However, is a guy like Shane Bloom or outside the organization how you would like to see things go, Johnny? I know you are also looking into the free agents that are available coming into 2025. Jen, go ahead and jump
So
in.
I believe it's pronounced Heim.
Thank you. Johnny? Free agents 2025?
Yeah, as far as the GM,
where are you at on this front office, and if they're the ones taking the helm? And then what are your thoughts on Bloom or even going outside the organization?
Bloom, like whoever, like somebody who has a track record, preferably. That's who I'd like. You know, like the Phillies went out and got Dave Dombrowski, who has a long career, ups and downs, but like is a respected GM around Major League Baseball. I'd like that kind of GM. Doesn't have to be someone with quite the track record that Dave Dombrowski had. I mean, that guy was around in the 80s, but like just somebody who, and I feel the same way about the manager. Go get somebody who has a track record, has some reputation. I don't, unless you've found the next Alex Anthopoulos, I don't want to see them rolling a dice on someone who's just like new and, you know, maybe they're good and you don't know. But outside the organization, I'd definitely like to see that, because clearly inside the organization, we ain't got much going in any respect. As far as the free agent class goes, I find 2025 really interesting, because there are a good number of 30 and under players who are available in multiple positions, not like last year. There's a variety of type of player. You've got your like buy low candidates, the like Shane Biebers, the Glaber Torres's, Alex Verdugo you could throw in there. And they're all 30 or younger. I might even say that Bregman is kind of a buy low candidate right now. And then you've got the sort of obvious, more sure thing guys like Soto. And then there's some good relievers to be gotten. There's Tyler O'Neill out there if you're looking for that number 4 power bat. There's lefty relievers who are quite reliable, like have been the same for like 3 or 4 years. Like
Yeah, I hear Tim Mays is available.
not him, but like Ciono Perez is the guy I was thinking of. He's had like kind of a low 3s ERA for like 4 years in a row. And he's a lefty, and it's like, so, you know, that's not great. It's not like Tim Mesa last year great, but it's like, you know what you're getting with him. He's always going to be like between 3 and 350. He's going to screw some games up, but more often than not, he's going to do a good job for you. And I like those kind of guys, the track record guys who are not like, I am buying what you did just last year. I'm buying what you did the last 4 years. So, and then there's Danny Jansen, who could be re-signed because he's the only bloody available catcher who's worth anything, and he's still young. There's Corbin Burns. So like the class coming up is really interesting. And if the Jays are willing to like put some more money on the line, they could pull a bit of a Texas Rangers, Philadelphia Phillies, and buy a good chunk of their team that is not too old and can be gotten for a while, and just basically put a new core together in fairly short order, but it would cost. And I don't know if that's their plan, but it is literally the only way I can see 2025 working, is if they just give her.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Johnny. I really do. Jen, jump in here.
So my only, and this is not in defense of Mark Shapiro, but Mark Shapiro clearly has the trust of the front office, or sorry, of ownership. Sorry.
Yes.
Right. In terms of getting money. So if both him and Atkins are gone and new people are brought in, whomever they are, do they automatically have the trust of ownership to be able to get that kind of payroll? I don't know if they do.
It's a very good point. And that is one thing, if there is any praise to be heaped on Mark Shapiro, is that there has been no one who has pulled off getting this ownership group to open their purse strings like Mark Shapiro has. And that is unarguably the case. Now, how does that translate? And do you still need him at the helm to pull that off? I have no idea. I know that I understand everyone's frustration with Shapiro because there has been so much talk of collaboration and we're all in this together type of stuff, right? The groupthink idea. And he does feel like the head of this front office. But maybe there is a world where a different GM at the helm, you know, with a different idea of where this team should go and different ideals and putting different value on what they want to see in the baseball team. You know, it just feels like we're in an echo chamber right now. And I don't even know if that's the case, but they just feel so directionless. This is where you start to assume these sort of things as a fan base. I know going to chat here, New Brunswick guy says, Chaim Bloom claim to fame was trading Mookie Betts for almost nothing. Janet D responds with Boston ownership forced a trade, which is very true. Michael Borland, Schneider heading to All-Star break early. So John Schneider was just ejected from this game. It is 8-7 for the Blue Jays. So maybe they do salvage a win out of this series. But I'm kind of at the point, and I'm curious where you're at, Joel, where this season's kind of already dead to me. You know, like I really can't see a scenario where, and I know it's a long season and blah, 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 and there's still 2 full months, but how can you expect anything else than what we've been seeing from this team for 18 months? This is a dead man walking when it comes to the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays. Would you agree with that assessment, Joel? And where do you think they go from here?
You think we gain ground within the division? Right, we're a 5th place team. It feels like we're a 5th place team in this division. Boston feels like a ball club. Tampa's not the killer that they were, but they're floating around 500. And Baltimore and New York are going to be battling for the division all year long. And we feel like a 5th place team. We do. So it's very hard to have faith. It's very hard to have faith in the microcosm of this game being up 7-0 and losing it in one inning, right? You
I
can't, where
mean,
do you,
Joel, look at where we're at. Jordan Romano is on the IL for the rest
yeah,
of the season, and who knows how long. We still don't really know what's going on with his arm. Eric Swanson, who was a high leverage reliever and one of the best in this pen in 2023, is literally pitching in Buffalo and still can't figure it out. Tim Mesa was our best left-handed reliever in the pen and pitched to a 1.5 ERA in 2023. We had to DFA him. Jimmy Garcia has been incredible, but he just hasn't been healthy, and I think he's going to be one of the first guys moved. So you look at the bullpen, and I know that there were some people who were frustrated with Trevor Richards being put in the high leverage situation 2 games ago. But my response to that is, who the hell else do you go to with this team? There's no answers.
it's what's scary about the amount of money that we spend and the depth. Where's the depth? Right? Like, how can you spend that much money and there's no starting pitching depth? There's no depth in the lineup. There's no depth in the bullpen. Where do you go to? Indeed, right? Trevor Richards is your you go to the ERA that's the lowest. You go to Green next, right? You go to whatever the lowest ERA is, and you just rotate through whoever's pitching best in that individual moment. It has to be your closer. The things that we leaned on last year are faltering for us this year, and they had already faltered for us. A lot of those pieces had already faltered from the year before. So it's just, yeah, it's this cascading domino effect, and you don't know where to lean on. You don't know where to have faith. You're like, what piece of this team is we're gonna do it in low scoring games and win. What's our record in 1-run games? It's atrocious. We can't outscore our opponents, and we can't keep our opponents to a low score and beat them that way. So it's just like, yeah, you know.
So let's play that game then. I'll throw to you here, Johnny. Who do you on this Toronto Blue Jays team envision as part of the core moving forward? I know that there are expiring contracts, Bo and Vlad, and you know, in this world, I will allow for extensions and whatnot. But who in this core do you see this team trying to build around? They keep, and this is why I asked this, because they keep bringing up the fact that they are going to try to compete in 2025. And I'm with Jen. I don't know how, in what world this is possible, but with that in mind, that this is the goal of this front office, or at least the lip service that they're giving us fans right now, who do you keep? Who are they building around? And you know, who are you trying to bolster around?
The people I would keep are Vlad, Spencer Horwitz, Danny Jansen, re-sign him, Varsho, in center field, batting 7th, 8th, 9th. I don't
Please.
mind in an amazing center fielder who can't hit very well batting 7th, 8th, 9th, and you can go forward with him. I'd like the kind of same thing with shortstop. I'm kind of done with Bo. I mean, if he doesn't have his hit tool, he ain't worth nothing. And I'm like, I'm done with him, but I don't want them to trade him right now because he's at all-time low value. But I've never seen his swing having value going forward because his swing is so twitch mechanic-y. It's not the easy fluid swing like Teo's swing that Joel talked about a week ago or so, where it's like that's going to play for the rest of your career because it's effortless. Bo's swing is absolutely efforted. It is like George Springer's swing, which we've also seen kind of it's tailing off, even though he's had a good couple weeks here. It's just you're getting old, and those like twitchy mechanics and that max effort thing is just not going to keep playing. It's kind of like the Ken Griffey Jr.'s disease. You can't play 110% your whole career. You're going to get hurt, you're going to slow down, and you're just not going to be the same. When you are on the field, you're going to be good. Maybe. But I'd like to see them get a shortstop somewhere. But the guys who are here now who I'd like to see stay, Horwitz, Vladdy, Jansen, Varsho, Rodriguez pitching. That might be it. I like Clement as a bench piece. Like
Mhm.
if he could be your permanent kind of like plays a bunch of positions. I like how he plays the game. I like how he has the positional versatility and he can hit a bit. I like that. So I like having that kind of guy on the bench for you, or like playing 2 out of 3 days because he fills in everywhere to give other guys rest days. But beyond that, I don't have any attachment to anybody else on this team right now. I've loved the look of Jimenez so far, and I want to see more of him. And I'd be happy to see some trades happen this year just so we get to see more of him and other people who
Yeah.
maybe could be part of the future. I mean, I'm ready to just like give me the rookies. Give me all those Buffalo boys. Give me the like all the minor leaguers. I want to see what they've got and see who will stick. David
I couldn't agree
Schneider, I
more, man.
like him, but I'm not sold on him. Like,
At least until the end of the year, right? Like if they are going
yeah,
to
yeah,
move some of these expiring contracts, bring these guys up and let's see what we have. Like if they truly are planning on competing in 2025, which again, I don't really think is possible. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope when I say that I'm wrong and they find some sort of they fix they solve the Rubik's Cube that us fans couldn't do. Right. But I just have a tough time with that. And I know going to chat here and everyone who's talking this is nailing it. So Michael Borland says it shows how poor they draft. Even the guys they traded away haven't performed well in MLB. Manoah was a hit until last year, but no young pitchers in the system can pitch a few innings. And I mean, this is from Ben Nicholson Smith. He released a tweet just today that says Blue Jays first round pick since 2016. TJ Zoik in 2016. He has a wins above replacement of negative 0.6. Logan Warmoth, for those of you who forgot about Logan, he was a first round draft pick for this team. Not applicable is his WAR because he never played in the big leagues. 2017, Nate Pearson with a negative 0.09 wins above replacement. Jordan Groshans in 2018, a negative 0.1 wins above replacement. Alek Manoah, which was their biggest success to date with a 7.5 wins above replacement. And let's face it, that was all accumulated in 2021, half a season in 2022. Austin Martin in 2020, negative 0.4 wins above replacement. Gunnar Hoagland in 2021, Brandon Barriere in 2022, and Arjun Namala in 2023. Those are not applicable because none of them have played big league baseball yet. But really, when you go down that list, that's a pretty major yikes.
That's the biggest
Jen?
indictment of this front office because they came in here with that statement, right? That they were going to rebuild the farm system and it was going to be sustainable for years to come. And that is their greatest failure.
Waves of talent, Joel. Remember that promise? Waves of talent.
Ripple? Have we had a ripple of talent? You know, it's pretty clear water. It's pretty easy sailing. There's no waves, there's no tsunamis, there's nothing like that. You look at Dodgers, you look at the teams that compete, they bring up a competitive ball player every year. Every year there's somebody new on a team who goes from mediocre to pretty solid to being a borderline all-star, and it's all internally built, and you have a system of constructing a player, whether it's confidence or mechanical, and you've got the pieces, right? Like, I think this really shows that all the money that we've spent on infrastructure, what does infrastructure do? You could have the most amazing minor league training facilities you've ever seen. You can spend $100 bazillion and get all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the right people teaching the game, none of it means jack shit, right? So it's an indictment to this front office for their incredible the promises and their lackluster results and their concepts of what makes a contender and how you bolster that and how you take commodities like Vladdy is been with us for 9 years, since 2015. He's the best thing that we've produced. It was a different GM who got that player. And have we made him better? Is a problem with the issue of him not succeeding? Is that internal? Is that us? Is that us not being able to take these types of exceptional players and take them to, because they came up and they were there. They came up and Bo's ripping record long extra base hit streaks. And Vladdy's coming up, and at 21, 22, he's putting up records. And then instead of heading towards 28 and peaking, they've been on a steady decline. And I just, that's crazy to see from. And then the
This
injuries.
team was supposed to compete for a wild card in 2024, and they are currently almost 10 games under 500. I know they're not quite there, but it is not pretty. We are sitting on the verge of the All-Star break. The Jays are up 8-7 in this game right now. However, I mean, it doesn't really matter how this game goes, in my opinion. And I mean, you go back to chat here. Chris says that list was ass, talking about the first round draft picks. New Brunswick, Canada guy says Jack Shit is the name of the prospect they are drafting tonight. So, I mean, people have lost faith in even future draft picks, which is such a big hole for this team to be in. Jen, when you look at this coaching staff, and after all that we've just talked about and the amount of failures, the lack of anything substantial that this front office has given us, not even one playoff win, does it surprise you that there have been 0 jobs lost in 2024?
Somebody should have been fired just for the hell of it, to be completely honest. I can't remember who I saw on, they think they were on Blair and Barker, and it was about a week ago. It was a former GM, and I do not remember who it was. And he was asked about the potential of firing Ross Atkins. And he said, you know, that just doesn't really tend to happen in season, but a poor record is what would get a manager fired, right?
Mhm.
Now, do I think this season has gone as poorly as it's gone solely because of John Schneider? Absolutely not. Okay. So, but this fan base is just completely over this team, over this management group, over this front office, right? And it doesn't look like anything's being taken seriously. Ross Atkins has come out and addressed fans and addressed the media, 3 times, and has said a whole lot of nothing. I am accountable. I am accountable. But where is that
And
accountability?
Jen, that was only after Mark Shapiro was basically like, you have to tell them you're accountable. like he had to get his fingers slapped and have the president of baseball ops come out and literally take accountability for himself and then force him to do that.
Exactly. And so, you know, when you're looking at all of this, I want to touch upon a few things that have been mentioned here. As far as the coaching staff at the different levels and whether or not they're responsible for the various failures we've seen, or the fact that somebody like Vlad has not progressed or hasn't progressed enough. I think that would be an argument for getting rid of the entire front office, because I think you would need fresh eyes to evaluate the process. Right? I don't think internally that they can do it. As far as firing Schneider, it doesn't make a difference this season.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
No, I'm with you. I actually would prefer they keep Schneider and fire Atkins midseason, because Atkins is the guy who is going to need to be making these changes and decisions to see what happens to this franchise going forward. Going back to chat here, some really interesting stuff going on in chat, and I love it. And I'm going to start with Smooth Brown Man, who says, I was a fool for believing in this front office. No depth. 25th ranked farm system. This year is dead. Is Mark S. brave enough to relieve Ross of his duties? And that is the major question. And you know what, Smooth Brown Man? You were not alone. Honestly, after the 2021 season, I really did believe in this front office. I thought they'd built a very good team, and I was excited to see where they bolstered around that lineup. And they refused in the 2021 trade deadline to push chips in and get a real contributor. They refused to do it again in 2022. And this has kind of been the ongoing theme of this front office is they can get you to a good point. They can't push you over the ledge. And I know there were lots of people who are saying, yes, absolutely. I think this is a good front office. It's not a great front office. And they just seem to be proving that. I know Janet D says, I don't want Atkins to pick another manager. I'm with you, Janet. Blue Jays Today is in the chat. Hello, gentlemen. Says, blow a 7-run lead and also ruin your biggest trade piece's value in 1 inning. Level impossible. Blue Jays, hold my beer. I got this. So, yeah, things are ugly right now in the world of Blue Jays. And I think this is a perfect time for us to get to our what happens if these pieces are moved. This is episode 309 of Long Toss. Thank you, everyone who is in the stream right now. Feel free to hit that like button. I know that we're mid-game right now as we do this, but we kept to our schedule because also this game doesn't matter. So here we are. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. So, Yusei Kikuchi, Jimmy Garcia, Justin Turner, Kevin Kiermaier, possibly Chris Bassett, Trevor Richards is probably on the block. There are some there may be some surprises in there too. You know, both Bo and Vladdy are free agents at the end of next season. So some major choices need to be made there too. This team could technically be absolute trash in 2 weeks. Johnny, I'm going to throw to you here to speak a little bit on pitching because starting pitching, if there has been a strength to this team this season, it's definitely been the starting pitching. I know that they have definitely shown more chinks in the armor this year than they did last year. However, still a fairly reasonably good starting pitching staff. But if you do minus Yusei Kikuchi and you do minus Chris Bassett, where are they getting these innings? And are we going to see guys just from AAA called up, and Aaron Sanchez perhaps just called up to just pitch 3 innings? We don't even care how many runs you allow.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to handle that. I mean, it's like I think somebody on Sportsnet said it a while ago that like if you make that trade, like if you make a trade for Kikuchi or whatever, the trades are going to have to involve some MLB warm bodies. You know, like they're just to replace the MLB players you're letting go. And I think in the case of the starting pitching, like whatever trades you're making, if you're trading a position player away, you might be trying to get a pitcher back. So it's like that kind of what scares me about the whole thing is that we tend to think, and like fans tend to think, oh, we could get a haul for Kikuchi, like a light haul or whatever, but like we could get these kind of players, and we tend to think of them as all being prospects, but it's like you can't get all prospects because then you have no major league team. And
Yeah.
so you have to make deals where it's like, can you give us one prospect and a warm body who has like a 6 ERA just to eat innings in the majors until we die? You know, like that's kind of how, like, that's how I think it can possibly be played out. Either that or they fully phone in 2024 and it's just like move all the minor leaguers up a level, you know, and sign some minor league free agents to fill in the innings gaps in the minors, that kind of thing. But it's like, I think it's a disaster. I wanted to say, because you always mention the waves of talent thing. And the first time you guys said that on here, it made me think it's more like a leaky sewer pipe of talent. And then today I thought, no, because a leaky sewer pipe doesn't cost anything. This cost the team a lot of money. So I'm like, now I think it's the Conan O'Brien Simpsons episode with the train. It's that. It's the
monorail.
It's the monorail that goes around the city and just stops and it falls off.
We've been sold
explodes.
a very expensive monorail. I love that.
That is the Blue Jays farm system. It's the Simpsons monorail. Thank you, Conan O'Brien, you genius.
I mean, Michael Borland in chat says, can we just bring up prospect Joey Votto? Some say he might be a Hall of Famer. I mean, I guess, Joel, if there's one
That's good.
bright spot in this season, we are gonna eventually see Votto in a Jays jersey, right? Unless he steps on a rake or something.
Like another Simpsons episode.
Yeah, like another Simpsons episode. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? There's Joey Votto to come up, which is I just it's unfathomable to think that this team and all the hope and dreams that we had in just months previous, and now we're talking about, well, now we're in a situation, if we trade our good players, how does this team even exist? How does it even exist in this universe? Does it just cease to exist? Does it evaporate into fairy dust? And for it to be so flexible and, or not flexible, so flimsy, and it's just so sad. It's so scary to me. Where do we get these innings from? Get Greinke to 3,000 strikeouts. Go sign
Yeah.
him. Just sign him. Just say, Zach, you want to come and get to 3,000 strikeouts? Why not? Get
Yeah.
a news story. Get a thing. A thing happened that was good. They lost 18-2.
They blew a
but
7-0 lead, but we got to see Joey Votto and Zach Greinke play on the Blue Jays.
See
Right,
if Jamie
like,
Moyer
it's-
wants to pitch.
it's you can get more fans with a sideshow than you can. We're almost getting to the point where just anything to entertain.
Can we
Jose
put a
Bautista back
third
for a game.
arcade in the Rogers Center? Can All right. So now we are
Everybody's
at
getting face painted tears now, right?
truly, that's the face paint, is sad clown and teardrops for the kids, for the children. So this is episode 309 of Long Toss. So happy to have Baseball Jen, Hey Kami, Joel Laflamme, and of course our producer Johnny Eaton with us. The panel, small but mighty. But I will say this, we are going to get to the portion of the show where we are giving letter grades to the different areas within this Blue Jays organization. And I can't imagine this report card being overly impressive in any sort of way. So we'll start with pitching. And I know that going into this season, pitching and defense is what was supposed to get us to the promised land, right? So, Johnny, you've got, I like that you only wrote out one letter and you're like, I'm probably not going to need many more than this, but Jen, I'll start with you. And maybe what we'll do is we'll call this first one starting pitching. So we'll go with starting pitching, just your overall letter grade, old school A through F. Where are you at? And feel free in the chat to drop your comments here and we'll get to them.
Have you ever wondered why there's no E in that letter grading? Just tough. Anyways, starting pitching, I mean, they're middle of the pack if you go by FWAR. The flip side is they're the only thing that has kept this team in games sometimes. And it's definitely not the pitching staff that the front office thought they were coming into the season with. So it's really difficult, I think, to give them a grade when they're really the only decent thing about this team. I'm thinking C plus, B minus.
Yeah.
I think they're mid.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Jen. I think B minus might even be generous. I'm with you
Yeah.
on the C plus. And there have been bright spots. So I don't want to completely get bleak here because this is probably one of the more positive categories we're going to touch on. So I will say, you know what? Yusei Kikuchi, after a career year last year, has looked equally good this season, which is great to see. a little consistency. Jose Barrios has had his ups and downs. I know he's had some tough starts, the last couple of them here, but he's been, I would say, above his career average. Kevin Gausman has been a disappointment. Without a doubt, his splitter has not been as sharp, and batters just seem to be sitting on it a little more than they have in previous years. I know we did see some serious progress over the last couple starts, but that's the thing with guessing on a guy over small sample sizes is has he figured it out? I would give it a few more starts. Yariel Rodriguez has been, I would say, a wash. We've seen some ups and downs, although I will say his progress as a starting pitcher is probably exceeding my expectations just for a guy who's never pitched in the big leagues. And then Chris Bassett, slow start, looks good now. Probably the guy with the most value in this rotation. So I'm with you, Jen. I'm going to C+. Joel, starting pitching, where are you at letter grade wise for the 2024 Toronto Blue Jays?
Can't really argue with where you guys are. It is the high point. The fact that we're talking about a C as a high point is rather scary.
C's get degrees.
Yeah, they do. I'm proof, baby.
That's what the front office is showing. Well, hell, we'll look at our starting pitching grade. Nothing else. Judge us off that, please. Yeah, it's a situation where maybe a little of Pete Walker's luster has kind of gone by the wayside. He hasn't these issues with Gausman. I would have hoped that he would have been able to remedy a little bit better. And I think that some of the issues that I see with young pitchers not coming up and being able to establish themselves, I would have hoped that Bowden Francis and Nate Pearson would have been able to come up and some sort of Pete Walker magic gets sprinkled upon them, and they're everything Nate's everything he's supposed to be. But we're now you've seen injury with Manoah, and you've seen injury with Pearson and Tiedemann. So it's like the youth that you bring up, you're not creating a healthy style of pitching. Like these young guys and whatever, like all the money that you're spending on them, you're not being able to find consistency out of them, and also out of Yariel. Like Rodriguez is very, very impressive when he's healthy, but that's an issue is keeping him out there and asking him. Kikuchi has been really effective, but this year we've kind of asked him to take up the inning, that extra inning this year. It was 5 1/3, and now we ask him to go 6, and there's a difference there. There's a difference in getting those extra 3 outs. And so yeah, the fact that there isn't any depth to be able to support that, when we used to have like a guy like a Ross Stripling who could come in and fill a lot of roles, and we don't have that. Like Rodriguez would be really nice in that kind of role.
In that role, which was the
right?
role he was originally planned to be in. And that's another thing. And I don't want to cut you off here, Joel. I will let you give your letter grade here, but I mean, look at this bullpen and the roles these guys are filling. Like there's so many guys in roles that they were not intended to be in. And I mean, injuries happen in every team, but there is a lot of this that falls at the feet of the front office and just not having the depth needed. And I know that that is such an easy excuse to give, right, Joel? Like just, because depth is hard to come by, right? That's the thing. If your top guy goes out, there's not a guy just as good in AAA waiting to come up. There's just not. But I mean, right now, the depth in AAA is Aaron Sanchez, who is sitting with a 10 ERA in AAA. So where are you? Where are you? I know in chat here, Mark Ryan says C+. What's your letter grade for this starting pitching rotation this year?
Yeah, I'll give it a C+ because that's the highest I'm going to go. So yeah, might as well put the plus on it.
Johnny, starting pitching. I know you touched a little bit on depth already here. Where are you at with this team, and what's your letter grade?
I'm going to be a tiny bit more generous than everyone else. I give them a B- purely because a lot of this team's wins would not have happened if there weren't some really gutsy performances by every single one of them. Like just every single one of them has had at least one,
Yeah.
many of them more than one, where they made the win happen because the offense was just dead, completely dead. They held the team to 1 run, no runs, 2 runs, whatever the case. But like Kikuchi a number of times kept the team in it. Like Rodriguez has had a few of those where he's kept the team in it. Bassett's had several, so many where like that's a guy where he's pitching old school and he's pitching to win. And there are times where he's given up runs, but the team has actually scored those times. So he's just such a dog. He's like, I'm going to do everything I can to keep my team in it. Gosman's had a couple really glorious games. So I kind of just, I'll give him the B minus because they really have been the highlight. And there have been some brilliant pitching performances we've gotten to see. It's just, they get forgotten in a terrible season.
Mhm. You know what, Johnny? I really like that you brought that up because this pitching staff has shown a lot of, for lack of a better term, guts this year. I mean, Chris Bassett, kind of the poster child for that, taking a 100-mile-an-hour fastball off the arm and just getting right back to it and pitching 6 innings, even though this happened in the first and he just, like you could see the lump on his arm. And like you said, there are stories like this with almost every guy in this rotation. B minus from Johnny, and I think that's
They've
that's
got,
quite fair.
sorry to jump in. They've also, like
No.
right now, they have the worst job on the team. Those poor guys. Maybe not lately with George, finding his swing and Vladdy hitting home runs before, but like for months, they had the worst job on the team. And having pitched myself for a while, like I remember I actually made a comment on this where it's like the biggest thing that will annoy you is when your fielders suck. The second worst thing that annoys you is when the umpires suck, and the third worst thing is when your hitters suck. And if all three happen on the same day, which has happened to the Blue Jays several
Yes, it
times,
has.
oh my God, it's awful to be out there on the mound. You're just gutting it out and going like, I have to be absolutely perfect. And even then, the ump might not give me the call. It's like that's that you could lose your mind on the mound when that happens. And it's
Jen, jump in
happened
here for
to
a
all of them.
second.
I just want to go back to the commentary about Pete Walker,
Yeah.
who has done really great things with pitchers on this team.
Evaluate the
But
why of they play, but we don't know how they got.
Interesting. But I think like anybody who's gone to therapy knows that you learn a certain amount from a particular therapist and you kind of get all of the tools you can out of that one person. And then often it's time to like find somebody else who can give you a fresh perspective or who can like just give you more tools, if that makes any sense, right? And I think that might be the case here with Pete Walker and with these pitchers, as they've heard the same voice and gotten the same instruction or the same advice for a while now. And these guys aren't kids, right? They're if we're talking about, say, a Kevin Gausman or whatever, and then maybe it's just time that they hear a new voice. Maybe it's time that, again, fresh eyes take a look at them and see what could be tweaked.
Jen, I love that you brought that up. I was actually going to mention that same thing and just the idea of a different voice. And it's nothing against Pete Walker. We'll go to the chat a little bit here. Michael Borland says, yeah, Walker's aura of pitching guru seems to be wearing off. And it's not even a slight on Pete. It's like you said, Jen, right? Like we as humans, we can take as much experience and knowledge from someone until you just can't anymore. Right. And Pete's been in this organization a long time, longer than any other coaching member in this staff. And maybe it is just time for a different voice. And honestly, I think that kind of can be said right across the board for this coaching staff, is that maybe it's time to just start again. Let's start with some new voices, some new ideas, and see where we're at. Going back to chat here. Chris says Walker shouldn't get a pass for the horrible bullpen 2 of the last 3 years. Last I checked, he's the pitching coach, not the starting pitching coach. And there is some truth to that, because I'll tell you right now, Pete Walker's success is definitely all fall in the starting pitching category. Not that he hasn't had some successes, obviously, out of the pen, but far more when it comes to the starting rotation. So we will now go to the next item we have to give a letter grade to so far at the All-Star break. We're over halfway through the season, so we're giving our report card on where this Toronto Blue Jays team is at. This is episode 309 of Long Toss. This is the walk-off. If you're watching, we would love it if you hit that like button. If you are not subscribed, love it if you subscribe. We've got Baseball Jen with us, Joel Laflamme, Hey Kami, and Johnny Eaton as a part of the panel, and he's doing the back scene producing. It is lovely. I don't need to worry about it. So again, Johnny, thank you. Let's go to defense, because again, I mentioned this before we hit the report card, is that pitching and defense was supposed to be what brings us to the promised land. It is supposed to be the strengths of this team. And I broke defense up into two categories because outfield defense, I think it might be the one area where they're going to get some A's in this report card. But infield defense, maybe not as much. And Jen, I will start with you here. I will start with saying that I don't know if it's helpful nobody playing the same position ever. Really, the only guy who you are penciling in every single day is Bo Bichette into that shortstop position as long as he's healthy, and he hasn't been healthy. Vladdy's taking all of first base, but not even that, because they've had to do some weird things with the lineup to try and squeeze every little bit of offense out of this batting order that they can. So we've seen some wonky things in the infield, although we've also seen guys like IKF exceed expectations. Jen, where are you at on the infield defense, and if you can get to your letter grade?
If we're grading, yeah, it's a bit challenging because, as you said, there have been some wonky things going on, and IKF being injured and different players having to kind of be shuffled into positions. I think they've done an okay job.
Yeah.
Right. I think that the infield defense has certainly been serviceable, but has not been a contending caliber. How's that? Right. So
not with this offense, they haven't been.
right.
Like if this was the infield defense for the Philadelphia Phillies, we might be talking a little differently.
Right. So I think because they're serviceable, right? I equate serviceable with a C.
Right. Hey, I not to just copy everything you say, Jen, but I also kind of gave this infield a C. Joel, where are you at? I know it's been interesting because we have seen all these call-ups of Spencer Horwitz, a guy who didn't start playing second base until this season. And honestly, he's actually been pretty serviceable at second base in Major League Baseball. We watched Leo Jimenez get called up, and he's been thrust into that shortstop position. I mean, IKF's out of the lineup. Where are you at on the infield defense? Is it enough? And taking offense out of the equation, could you stomach this style of defense if they were hitting better?
Yeah, I think that I can very much stomach the style of defense. I would say they're playing good defense for like utility players. Like it's good utility player defense, right? And the fact that there's so many different infielders to grade at so many different positions, you're like, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about Ernie Clement at second, short, or third? What are we talking about? Davis at second, at third,
or left?
Yeah. Or like, where are we? How am I judging them? Because they're like, he's made some okay plays here. He's botched a few over here. Like, you don't know how to judge a guy because he's so utility heavy, and you're trying to think of like, well, on a team that wasn't running 9, more bench players than starters is kind of the issue there. And then Bo's fall off is kind of sad because I am a Bo fan, but I don't think that the competitive edge is in him at all this year. It just seems gone, and the throws have been ridiculous. All the amazing work that he did to put up 8 errors last year seems lost in one off season. So but I'll give another C+ because I've seen, like you said, Spencer's come up and he's been serviceable. IKF has been really good wherever you put him. And I've And Ernie's been good where you put him. He's made a few mistakes, but yeah, I might as well give some high grades to the defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny, where are you at? Before I throw to you for your letter grade for the infield defense, I will go to chat real quickly here. Janet D says outfield A, infield C. I think that's fair. Mark Riled, infield defense C minus. I liked Joel giving a little bit of extra credit to just how much they get moved around the infield and going with a C plus there. Where are you at for infield defense? Let's hear it, Johnny.
Oh boy. Okay, overall, I'm actually gonna again veer away from others' grades here. I actually give them an A.
Oh,
They're the second highest team in defensive run saves in the major leagues. Uh, that's an A to me every time. How it's distributed, you can argue that. Definitely Bo has not been. I mean, Bo went back to just kind of being the Bo we know with the like crazy throws and stuff. But like a lot of these guys, I think they get noticed for their errors. A lot of the times, those errors are just kind of like little minor mental gaffes, but sometimes they're on like kind of tough plays. Like Ernie Clement got one the other day on a hop that just shouldn't happen. He got a hop in front of him that came up like near his armpit, and he did the effort to try to get it, but it got through him, and he got an error because it hit his glove and bounced out into the field. But I was like, I wouldn't call that an error because that was a horrific hop he got. So sometimes things like that have happened, but I think overall, like we've got two very good catchers. Vladdy's very good at first base. No one catches a pop up in foul territory like Vladdy does, or on the, in the outfield, going backwards over his shoulder kind of stuff. Schneider has been great in the outfield. Varsho's amazing. Springer has been great. So yeah, like IKF when he wasn't injured was fantastic. Horowitz has been quite. I haven't seen him really make a bad play at second. Jimenez has been great since he's come up. I like Bo is the weakest fielder to me on a team full of very good fielders. And this team, pretty much the same team as last year that was built on defense. I mean, you've got Turner, but he barely plays in the field. So they actually have a very good defensive team. It just doesn't matter when you can't hit and your bullpen has just died before your very eyes. And you're just, doing the
no,
cross and like, putting
you
the coins on
defended
their
your A.
eyes.
You defended your A well, Johnny. You defended your A well, and I mean, I when it comes to outfield defense, I mean, it's almost impossible not to give this outfield defense an A. They have been absolutely incredible. Maybe the biggest weakness they have is when they throw a guy in left field who's never played left before. Addison Barger looking at you. But so the Jays did win. If you're joining right now, welcome to Long Toss episode 309. We've got Baseball Jen with us. We have Hey Kami, Joel LaFlamme, and we've got our producer joining the panel, Johnny Eaton. Love to have all three of you here. The Blue Jays take 1 out of 3 in Arizona. And like we started the show off an hour ago saying, this game was pretty much irrelevant anyways. We'll go to chat really quick here and talk Stuart Burrowa, because I know who says it here. Michael Borland said, speaking of defense, Burrowa just had 2 nice catches in right field. Stuart Burrowa is a guy that no hype, no fanfare, signed as an international free agent out of the Dominican Republic years ago now for like 10 grand or something like that. And he's a dude who is kind of showing that maybe he is a guy that can play some Major League Baseball. But I think that's one of the problems with this team is that there's a bunch of those guys we're crossing our fingers and hope catch. We've been pretty darn lucky with Spencer Horowitz so far. And I do think there is more out of Spencer, but you start going through. So Stuart Burrowa made his Major League debut in the lineup today. He's been on the bench numerous times over the last week or two here. And his enthusiasm was really fun to watch. Just seeing him jump around after that win is cool. But you go, Stuart Burrowa made his Major League debut this year. Leo Jimenez made his major league debut this year. Spencer Horwitz made his major league debut last year, played a week and a half. Really, this is his first major taste of the big leagues. Aroldis Martinez made his major league debut this year. I mean, that's too much. And I think that's why this team is floundering like they have. On that, we'll go to outfield defense here and go around the horn. Let's do this. Maybe we'll jump into the bullpen and just, if anyone disagrees with an A for outfield defense, you can speak up now and say your piece. But I think it's hard to argue they haven't been an A, with the exception of, again, left field from time to time. Jen, where are you at?
If we're talking about strictly defense and not their offensive production
Not their offense. We're
as
gonna get to
outfielders?
offense.
Okay, then yeah, then defensively they're definitely an A. I can't even imagine next season when you've got Varsho in center and you don't have Kiermaier out there and who's playing left and but you know, and Springer's another year older. But what we've seen on the field this year, absolutely 100% give them an A.
And Johnny, I know you brought it up. They lead the league in outs above average. Do you see anything outside of an A for this outfield? I mean, you gave the infield an A. You got it. The outfield's an A.
Oh, I was giving the team overall an A. Oh, sorry, I misunderstood the question. The outfield I'd give an A plus. The infield I'd give like a B plus.
Okay, I like that. Joel, anything outside of an A for this outfield? Yeah, I mean, pretty obvious there. Now we're going to get into the subjects that are definitely going to get worse letter grades here. Let's talk the bullpen. Joel, I'll get you to start us off here. I don't have much to say to throw to you here outside of, I've been really disappointed in this bullpen. Even with all the injuries, I was really hoping that and I know betting on a bullpen to repeat any success you see year to year is a very dangerous game to play. And we're seeing it, but my goodness, where are you at? Is this an F? Is this bullpen failing?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's scary because the pieces that you would really just want to work, like the dream that Nate Pearson was going to be Nolan Ryan, coming to the expectations of just like, can you be an average bullpen piece? And that not, you're like, oh, we can't even get that. All right. And you know, Yariel would have been a really nice bullpen piece, and Ricky Tiedemann maybe coming up halfway through the season and giving you 30 good arms out of the as a lefty would have been really, really nice, like to be able to account for these things. But your main, where you put your main weight in a bullpen, Romano, Swanson, Meza, the places that you would lean on when all of that falls apart, it's traumatic. It's terrifying. It's the worst place to lose a game. The worst place to lose a game in those last 3 innings when you're up. And the amount of runs that we're able to blow now. No lead is safe. It's, you know, we won today, but and it was on Kikuchi, don't get me wrong, that's starting pitching, but it's when you're relying on Trevor Richards, who a year ago, are we waiving him? Are we DFAing a guy? Oh, now he's your closer, right? And to be a maxed out payroll, it's just absolutely, failing grade. D.
I couldn't agree more with everything you just said, Joel. I really do think that this bullpen gets a big F. Going to chat, there's not a lot of people disagreeing. Mish says, we won. I have the emotional fortitude for long toss now. We did give a very clear warning off the top that this was not going to be a rainbows and sunshine show. So we are in the thick of it right now. Do appreciate everyone who has hit the like button. This is episode 309 of Long Toss. If you are not subscribed, subscribe. Michael Borland says F-, they stink. Mark Ryan talking outfield defense. He says New Brunswick, Canada guy, F-. Janet D says bullpen is a W, as F is too high. And Johnny, I'll throw to you here, buddy. What is your letter grade for this bullpen? And I mean, I guess you need to take, yeah. He even wrote it out
No
for
words.
us. It's a visual. If you're on audio, you've missed Johnny's great artwork of an F. It was
It's an
impressive.
F.
Jen, do you
they've
feel
been
any
terrible.
differently?
I disagree with the commenter who said a W because that stands for win. You'd have to give them an L. So,
A big one.
yeah, there's no way that anybody could take a look at this bullpen as a whole and say that there's been anything successful about it. And, part of that is due to injury. Part of that is due to guys being put into roles that they're not really meant to be in.
Yep.
And but they are professional. They are professionals. And I feel like some of them ought to have been able to maybe perform better than they have. But then you also have to go back, and I'm going to keep doing this, go back to the front office for thinking that there wouldn't be some regression, right? For not taking a better look at this and thinking, I don't know. I don't know what they could have necessarily planned for, but you always have to assume that somebody in your bullpen is going to take a step backwards. You always have to assume somebody's going to be injured. They could not have possibly, they should not, let me rephrase, they should not have counted on Manoah being able to be a guy this season, which then him not being a guy in turn affected the use of the bullpen.
The depth. Yeah.
Right. And so, obviously the bullpen is a failure, but it's a failure from the front office on down to the actual performance of the players.
And I mean, there has been a lot of bad luck. Injuries is always a tough one to overcome. And I mean, even going down to the farm, I've been in Buffalo numerous times throughout their season covering the Bisons, and some of their best bullpen pieces, Hagen Danner, one of them, he made his major league debut with this team last year. He's injured again. He's a guy who can get it up to 100 and is probably the best right-handed reliever in the Bison's pen, and he was unavailable. Mason Fluharty is a really interesting guy. He's a lefty. He has the best numbers in the Bison's bullpen, but he's 22, and I get the feeling that they don't want to throw this 22-year-old to the Wolves quite yet. You don't want to ruin a kid's confidence over the 2024 Blue Jays bullpen. That's the only reasoning I can get for him not already being here. Michelle Marie Beer says bullpen D4 depleted, which is very, very true. Again, the injury bug hit them hard. And like Jen said, just a lot of guys in roles they were not supposed to be in. Okay, we're going to get to offense now, which, I mean, if you're not triggered in this chat right now, just saying the word offense, you are a bigger person than I am.
It's offensive.
Because this offense is offensive. And on that, Cheer, we will throw to you here, Jen. This offense has been just really tough as a fan to watch. And where are you at on it?
Yeah, I mean, they've got
Is
guys.
it the biggest F of the season? Is it the biggest F of all of these categories?
Yes, I suppose so. I don't even know what to say about it. That's how triggering, I suppose, this topic actually is. They've been terrible. The underperformance of players, and I get it. You can expect George Springer to regress, right? With age comes regression, being unable to catch up to the fastball. But did we expect that sharp of a decline?
No.
Did anybody expect that sharp of a decline? Cool that he's had a good couple of weeks or whatever, but too little, too late, buddy.
Bo's another one, Jen, where I'm just
Right?
like,
Oh,
I honestly,
dude, I haven't come there yet. I haven't gotten to Bo yet. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Vladdy, great that he's put together also several weeks where he's looked really good. Where the hell was that? Where was that? You're supposed to be this generational talent. You couldn't have figured it out sooner than now? I don't know. Bo doesn't even look like he wants to be here. Bo doesn't look like he cares. And I'm not saying he doesn't care. Don't mistake what I'm saying, because I know we are not supposed to read into body language. But the guy looks miserable. And for a guy who's supposed to have this amazing hit tool, again, why hasn't he figured it out? Right? So you just keep on going down the list.
I mean, we're not supposed to read into body language, but also stop languaging with your body so much, Bo. I mean, it is insane that like he constantly gets picked apart by this, and every time you see him, unless he's goofing around with Vladdy or something, he seems miserable. So, for everyone in chat right now, would love it if you hit that like button. By the way, Jen is got her big girl pants on, and she is toughing it through some illness right now. So she just disappears sometimes because I think that there is some blowing of the nose and stuff going on that she's saving all of us from. We will toss back to Jen just to hear her say that this is an F offense. But Joel, I'll throw to you here. Where are you at on this offense, and how would you fix it? Like, this is what every Jays fan wants to know. How does this offense become competitive?
You go offense first. You realize that zeros are quite often in baseball. There are a lot of zeros. An 8, well, not always does a crooked number end a game, especially when you're playing against the Jays. But run production is, you need to be able to score runs. Runs save everything. Runs save defense. Runs save bad pitching performances. Runs save your bullpen. Runs save your starting pitching. When you score, everything you get a little bit of leeway everywhere else, right? And when you rely on defense, it doesn't make your offense better, right? It makes your pitching better, but if the pitching is giving up home runs, you can't get those home runs back. And this is a game where you need to out home run your opponent. That's what we were built off of just 3 years ago. We were a plus 180 run differential. Now we're a minus 65, something in there. That's shocking to think that we spent $100 million going from plus 183 to minus 60 on our way to minus 150 if we blow this team up and we're really throwing away wins at the end. We've scored as many runs as the Oakland A's.
Well, the A's have some home run hitters, Joel.
Sure. That is a team that doesn't have a home and doesn't have a, they're moving them all over the place. This team is not being built properly. They get laughed at all the time that they're not trying to put a contender out there. Score the same amount of runs as the Blue Jays. Blue Jays put up the amount of money spent by the Blue Jays to score 390 runs, and the Oakland A's amount of money to score 390 runs. Like, that'll be the start of Moneyball too. And it's astounding to think that we're up in the spending $230-40 million on, and we don't know how to score runs.
It's a lot of money to spend on a team that doesn't put up any runs. It is it's frustrating, and you can tell that the frustration is growing amongst the fan base. I mean, going to the chat here, MBAC says unwatchable offense. Jeremy Pridham says team can't be fixed easily. Couldn't agree more with that. Mish, Bo is completely checked out. New Brunswick, Canada guy, Bo has been miserable since Simeon left. And I mean, you're kind of touching on a bigger, I think a bigger problem than maybe gets brought up. Simeon to this day feels like the guy who got away Jen, I'll throw back to you here now that you have returned and or have composed yourself. Did you want to finish your thought and just give that F that everyone's waiting for you to give?
Oh, it's a fucking F.
Yeah,
Um, it is, you know, even when today they put up 8 runs, who gives a shit? Like, it just, you know, the few times that they do it just seems like an anomaly. And too many players are having such underwhelming seasons, to say the very least. Underwhelming is kind. And you know, any trade value that some of them might have even had, like you can't trade Bo, right? I think they should. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm ready to
Jen,
get rid of him.
do you think that
I was
his-
ready to get rid of him last year. I think I was on the record as saying this. You're not
Yeah.
going to sign him. You're not going to sign Vlad. Then trade them both. But Bo has actually made himself untradeable because you're not going to extract any value at this point. Injury, you know, aside. So
do you truly believe that there's no team out there that views Bo as a guy who they could fix? I mean, I guess he's kind of in that reclamation project zone. So why would you give anything of value up?
well, that's just it. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made to give up fewer assets for him at this point, right? I mean, you know, especially if the team itself doesn't want to sign him to an extension, the team itself doesn't see him as being a cornerstone of their future, then what value that alone diminishes his value, right? Because he is somebody that this front office, right, supposedly was going to build around, right? He was supposed to be a future star. And so the fact that that's not going to happen, you know, in turn suggests, okay, well, what do they know about him, right? What is it about him that makes them not want to put their faith in him? You know, so that alone diminishes his trade value. And then the fact that he's not hitting worth a damn, you know, what is I know
And-
batting
and
average
Jen-
isn't everything. What is his batting average? What,
230.
Yeah, it's
230?
230. But
Bad.
Jen, this is over 100 games. Like that's
Oh,
what's
we're
really
talking
just-
about pretty much a full
Yeah.
season at this point,
yeah.
right? You know, and so what value are you getting back for him? I don't know. I'm just sick of seeing him being miserable out there. I'm sick of seeing his poor plate appearances. I'm sick of seeing it. That, you know, move him for that alone. But I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think they're going to get the value. Maybe they'll move him in the off season. I don't know. But you know, I've always maintained that he's going to want to take things to free agency. I've always maintained that, and I just don't even know right now. Yeah, this offense has been a failure. There's no other way to put it.
I couldn't agree more. Johnny, anything to add on the anemic offense that we have been dealing with for well over a season now?
I'm gonna give them a sort of grace pass of a D minus just because I don't want to insult Horwitz, IKF, and Vladdy because they've all contributed. And I think the problems for a lot of these guys is that this has been a horrible lineup construction. The wrong personnel are there. You talked about in the infield guys moving all over the place and that hurts the defense. Well, if you don't have good hitters through most of the lineup, you're not going to have a good hitting team. Like a lot of these guys are out of the position they should be. Varsho should not be batting higher than 7th in a lineup, but he is because he's one of the better hitters on the Blue Jays. And you can list that. Most of these guys are batting way above where they should be in a batting lineup. There's like Spencer Horwitz belongs in that top 4, probably number 1. Vladdy belongs number 2, and then you got nothing. You don't have a 3 guy, you don't have a 4 guy, you don't have a 5 guy, you've barely got a 6 guy, and everybody else is a 7 to 9 guy. And that's a disaster. So that other guys aren't getting RBIs is because nobody's on base ever. You know, like what can you do if nobody's on base ever? You can't drive people in, and if you're not hitting anyway, you're definitely not going to drive them in. So I just give them the D minus just because of those three guys. The rest of them are big fat Fs.
And you know what? You're not alone on that, Johnny. I know I don't remember who it was. It was a while ago in the chat, but they were like Buffalo boys get an A, everyone else gets an F. And that in itself is an indictment of where this team is at, right? When the guys that have been called up from AAA over the last year are the guys who are bringing the best approach at the plate, that's a problem.
So
Jen?
I discount them from the offense because they're not what was
No.
supposed to be here.
They're not the money that's invested in this
No,
team.
they're
right?
not. They're not. They on a good team, they're not up here. Right? They're not getting this playing time. And that's not to discount anything that
No.
they've done, because they've come up here and they have, played extremely well. But they're not supposed to be playing in the big leagues at this point of their career. So, when I'm talking about the offense being terrible, I'm actually not including them in that conversation. I think they are a separate conversation. And I think at this point, going back to something we were talking about earlier in the show, firing John Schneider isn't going to make a damn bit of difference in terms of how this season turns out. But if they want to fire him and have somebody else in there, just almost like as a trial run, just to kind of evaluate somebody.
Yeah, right.
Right? Just to evaluate somebody for the remainder of the year before making a final decision this coming off season, then I could maybe see that happening, right? And perhaps, between that and the guys from Buffalo, they're all sort of auditioning themselves for what this team actually has in front of them going into 2025.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, and I think the chat is agreeing with you here. And the next thing we're going to talk about here is coaching. So it does kind of lead into that. I know Michelle Marie Beer says, can we blame the offensive coordinator for the anemic offense? Joel, what is your thought on, I know Guillermo Martinez, Don Mattingly, they get a lot of heat because they're the ones that are supposed to be guiding this offense. How much weight do you put into their how much weight do you put into what they have done, and how much of the blame lies on their shoulders? And if you want to end with what your letter grade of this coaching staff, and not just those two guys, but coaching staff in general has been, including John Schneider, where are you at?
Well, like I said, you haven't seen the progress in the players that you want to see evolve, right? You haven't seen those youthful core members take that step forward, those expectations that Vladdy is a 310, 315 hitter who's going to hit 35 every year and 120 RBIs. And it's just like that not coming to fruition. I don't know if I still feel like it's in Vladdy. I still feel like it's in him. And when you see him get a haircut and it seems to be otherworldly, it seems to be the thing that's drawing him down. Like I've said for the longest time, is that lack of understanding where the pieces were there, right? The pieces were just there recently. And these pieces we were in a position where we could maintain these pieces in the positions they were in. It's like how do we go from such we don't have a concept of building a lineup when in 2021 we were breaking records. We had a second baseman breaking home run records. We had offense everywhere you looked. There was offense. We understood how that lineup needed to be built and how to maximize everyone's performance. And then to think that wasn't important. And then the management and understanding of offensive assets, a Teo being worth a Swanson and a minor league pitcher. That's a 4-hole hitter, right? Like, so to sacrifice your 4-hole hitter, who was a 4-hole hitter on Seattle, who goes to Los Angeles and wherever their injuries are, a 60 RBI guy with 20 home runs who's going to be in the home run derby. And to think that that's worth a guy who had a good year as a setup man in Seattle, right? Like Varsho, like you see them for what the value that they were traded for, and and I hate that you can't get past what went out to get them, right? Like if Varsho comes up within the system, he's this amazing defensive piece, and he would have really helped if there was still a Lourdes, if there was still a Teo, right? It's that lack of understanding of where these offensive pieces sit. It's the idea that Matt Chapman is a 4-hole hitter. Matt Chapman is an amazing baseball player if he's hitting sixth or seventh, where you don't have to depend on those 20 to 25 home runs. When he hits them, they put you over the top. They're not sitting there in the 4 spot, and we need you to hit one today, buddy. We need you to hit. I'm a platinum glove third baseman. Shouldn't I be worrying about that? And then the offense is a bonus?
It's the roles again. It's what Jed was
Right.
talking about. These guys are being thrust into roles they shouldn't be in. So as much as I do want to give Fs to all of these guys, you know, it really does land back on coaching. It lands back on the front office and roster construction, which is the final letter grade that we're giving here. I'm going to throw to you here, Johnny, because I'm curious on your thoughts on how much hitting coaches have to do with a team's success at the plate, and what your thoughts on where this coaching staff is at. Another okay. Yeah, like
I blame everything on this. I mean, I tend to put it more on Atkins than I do on Shapiro, just because of I don't know, but I assume that Shapiro's more the like baseball operations, like he's the guy doing the stadium stuff. And I've never gotten the impression that he was like doing sort of his job description badly, other than who he hired as a GM. And he's got to hire a GM and leave them the hell alone and let them be a GM. Not that I think Ross Atkins would have been good with nobody in his ear, but like, I really think what could benefit this team is just, yeah, get a new GM in there, let them bring their own manager, their own coaches, just hit the reset button, because this team's, I mean, the track record's there now. They completely botched the end game of a rebuild. And like Joel said, they had it going. I was same as you. Back in 2021, I thought, okay, here we go. This team's really going somewhere. They put the pieces of the puzzle together, and all they need to do is put a few more pieces in there, and they're over the top. And then they go, hey, you know what was working for us so well that didn't get us quite there? Let's abandon that instead of augmenting it just 10%. Let's just throw it out the window and become a pitching and defense first team for no reason at all. Just because somebody in our dead ears thinks it was a good idea. And whoever advised Ross Atkins to do that, they should just be drug out into the street and, I don't know.
honestly,
Something
Johnny,
terrible.
in fact, I would love some help in the chat here. If you can think of another organization that has taken the left turn that the Toronto Blue Jays did after the 2022 season, I would love the name of the team and the general manager who did that, because I looked for a comparable and I can't really find one. Like that 2022 wild card Mariners Blue Jays series broke Ross Atkins. And there's a lot of arguments to be made that maybe he was never the guy, that front office was never going to get them over the top, but they sure at that moment looked like they were on the right trajectory.
There's
And
a
then
sort
just-
of opposite example, which is the Philadelphia Phillies, where they went out and they're like, we're going to buy a whole lot of offense. We're going to go buy it. And we're just like, we're going to do this. And then like, they've kind of, but they've been very smart where it's like, okay, they did offense, forget defense. They didn't care about defense. Kyle Schwarber, all these guys like, oh, they're going to be horrible in the field. It's going to, everybody was like, it's going to cost them. Didn't cost them. But what they didn't do was go all offense. They went offense and a bit of pitching, specifically 2 absolute stud pitchers. And that's
And
really
they went
all
out
you
and
need. Look
Johnny,
at
they
the
went out and
Arizona
got Brandon
Diamondbacks.
Marsh. Like, don't forget that. They went out and got a really, really good center fielder.
Yes.
Say what you will
yes.
about Brandon Marsh, but he was never an offense first guy. And you know
That's
what?
true,
If
yeah.
you've got JT Realmuto. So like, you know, like
Yeah,
the
they went
guys
strong
who
up
are
the middle with defense.
they got strong up
It's-
the middle, and
It's the way to do
It's
it.
literally
That's the
just
blueprint.
classic team building. It's the
Yeah,
way that you've
yeah.
classically built a team of your corner outfielders provide your offense. You get a big arm at third base who can give you 30 knocks. Shortstop, it can either be Ozzie Smith or it can be A-Rod. Okay. And there's spots where you can gain the advantage on the league. If you're getting 45 bombs, if you're getting a Marcus Semien type, an all-star at second base who is lapping the field in production, you get that little added bonus of getting productions where you shouldn't be getting it. We were getting production out of Kirk and Danny Jansen. They were providing more offense out of the catcher spot. And now it's turned. Danny's been hurt a lot. Kirk has been atrocious offensively since then. And your strengths have become your weaknesses in such short order. And there's been so much money that's been allocated on top of where that team was. And I just to think that just the lack of understanding in the value that Lourdes and Teo brought to this team, that ability to lose a guy in your top four, but then move another guy up, and it's not that much of a loss. You know, what is a 280 hitter and a guy like Lourdes Gurriel who's got a good arm in the outfield, right? It's a very valuable commodity, and we lost too much of it. We just lost way too much of it.
I mean, and I hate talking about this because I feel like we've been talking about it for 2 years, but I mean, the fact that this team hasn't had a legitimate cleanup hitter in 2 years is fucking bullshit. It's absolute insanity. I don't understand how you can build a roster and leave that sort of hole. And I'm not even shitting on Justin Turner or Brandon Belt. In fact, they have been admirable in that sense. But I mean, you know, you lose Teo, you lose Semien, and you lose Gurriel Jr. all within that 12-month span. And like, that's a lot of home runs to think the next guy up is going to do it, right? And I think that they were just a little bit arrogant with how good the offense was. I don't think they thought that this would take quite the nosedive that it had. We are going to move on here. If anyone in the panel wants to add on anything when it comes to the offense and the coaching and the front office, now's the time.
I was told on X that women shouldn't talk about men's sports for lamenting the loss of Teo and Lourdes. So anyways.
So you'll keep your mouth shut like a good
No,
little
fuck
girl.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a special bird for them. It's called this, you know.
I just can't imagine taking a team that was exciting to watch, that was scoring runs, that looked like a team that had fun and had potential, and turning it into this, deciding that that was not the direction you wanted to go in. And, you know, rather than augmenting that offense with some strong pitching, for instance, right? Just that complete left turn just makes absolutely no sense. If we're grading the coaching, I feel like that's an insufficient, or sorry, like insufficient evidence. Because a lot of players say that the coaching at the big league level really doesn't make a difference. A lot of hitters say the hitting coach makes absolutely no difference. They all have their own coaches, right? So I don't know that we can actually adequately judge the job of the coaching staff. The front office, to go back to Johnny's earlier point, Mark Shapiro is president of baseball operations. And in that singular role, he has done an excellent job, right? For years, people complained about the stadium and wanted to rebuild the stadium, or do grass, or do something with that stadium, right? And Mark Shapiro managed to get money out of ownership in order to do those renovations. He did, right? Whether we can laugh about it all we want, oh, he's just an interior decorator. No, this is something that fans actually did want. And I think that what they've come up with as a solution is the best that they were going to come up with without actually building a full new stadium, right? And he got ownership to pony up that money. He also got ownership to pony up the money for for the roster, right? And to go over that luxury tax. So from that point of view, Mark Shapiro has actually done an excellent job. Okay. Ross Atkins,
Not so much.
you already know what I think of Ross Atkins and
Yes.
what he's done with this team. And if getting rid of Ross Atkins means you also have to get rid of Mark Shapiro, then so be it.
And again, we've talked about this. I truly do believe if Rogers goes to Mark Shapiro and says it's either Atkins or you and Atkins, there's not a world I can imagine where he's like, okay, it's both of us. So, I mean, we'll see how this all plays out. I know that there's some major changes coming to this team, and I hope that whoever is at the helm of this Toronto Blue Jays is going to prioritize scoring runs.
My
Like,
only,
I don't want to keep going back to Philadelphia, and I will come back to you here, Jen, but like, look at what they did when they lost out. They went out and they signed Trey Turner, right? They doubled down on what they were trying to accomplish rather than taking that hard left turn. Jen, what's on your mind?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My concern is that if they do decide to keep both Bo and Vlad, and that might be an ownership decision, right? That might not even be a front office decision. My concern is that both Shapiro and Atkins will be back
Keep their
because it'll
jobs.
be like, we've got one more year at this. So we're not changing anything if we're going to see what we can do for that one more year. And that is a concern.
I know that was one thing that Keegan Matheson brought up when we were in Seattle and the baseball town there. And I asked him straight up, I'm like, if they sign Vlad long term, could that save Ross Atkins' job? And very much like you just said, he was like, that's probably the most realistic possibility out there. And I bet that they are desperately trying to pull it off to do just that. So it is a scary thing to think about because I really do want Vlad on this team long term. I don't want him to be the guy. I think that building a team around him that can support him, very similar to what we were seeing in 2021. And I'm not saying that Vlad won't ever be capable of being the guy and carrying a team on his shoulders and being the guy that young guys are going to with their problems and concerns and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but I just don't think Vladdy is there right now. And I think he's probably a ways from being there, but he does have the talent that if you can lock him up for 8 years, you can still build around a 25-year-old.
I know he's saying that he wants to sign with the Jays and stay here for the rest of his career, but and whether or not that's true, I have no way of knowing. But it's also the only thing he can say at this point because it's only the only team he can negotiate with, right? But if you're Vlad, are you not looking over at the Yankees thinking, wouldn't it be nice to be in that lineup?
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe they're not so bad, he says.
Well, and there's a reason he said that. There's a reason he said that because he didn't just say that. He also said, this is business. I talked to my dad. I talked to my uncle. This is business. And that's exactly what it is. There are no feelings here.
Couldn't agree more. We will move on to our last topic here. We might just skip topics altogether here. We'll see how long this goes. To everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. I know that we did start Long Toss in the middle of this Blue Jays game, keeping to our schedule. Do appreciate all of you. Feel free to hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed, subscribe. Also, just a reminder too here to all of you, if you are in the Toronto area and are into a live Blue Jays therapy session, we have Baseball Town coming up at the Comedy Bar on Bloor Thursday from 7 to 9. Our panel is going to be Ben Schulman, the play-by-play announcer on the radio for the Blue Jays. We've got Chris Black from Twitter at Down to Black and Sportsnet producer. And then we also have from MLB.com, Julia Cruz. Our special guest is going to be the Looney Dog King. So we do have the boys coming down. And yes, they are in costume. And then our team roast battle is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers, Goliath versus the Oakland Athletics, David. So get your tickets now, comedybar.ca. I will pin the ticket link for everyone watching this while it's not live. And on that, let's talk some Paul Skeens and just what an absolute stud we are watching making his debut here. Joel, I'll start with you here, my friend. Pretty exciting watching a 21-year-old hit 104 miles an hour and completely dominate a league, right? And I love, too, that the NL is letting him start the All-Star game, something that a lot of fans want to see. Where are you at on Paul Skeens? How special is he? And is it official? Generational talent?
I saw this thing the other day of like the greatest single season, like a college World Series, drafted #1, Olympic, dating a TikTok model,
Yes.
makes his
Lizzie
major
Dunn,
league
yes.
debut, 6-0, off to a record start. Like that's his last 365 days. He's had a pretty good. He's ceiling, like at the beginning of the year, watching him pitch last year, and I was like the frame and everything, and you get that Strasburg feel, but he's bigger. He's bigger. He's 6'6", he's 245, he's a monster. And you get that Verlander feel of he can jack up the velo in the 8th. He can go to another level late in the game. That 99 and 100 is cruising for him. That's a guy who throws 100 but locates at 96. This guy throws 104, 105 and locates at 100. Right? This is at the beginning of the year. Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was saying he could be the next Nolan Ryan. Now I'm saying he's the first Paul Skeens.
Wow. I love that, Joel.
Yeah.
Johnny, you pitched. I shouldn't say you pitched now, but
Sure can't anymore.
you pitched. When you look at a guy like Paul Skeens and the skill set that he brings to this game, and how rarely you see a guy who has that sort of velo, can think his way through a lineup, can vary his pitches like he does. How rare is the talent Paul Skeens? And are you fine with him starting the NL All-Star game despite the fact of not really having the innings that you would normally like to see from a guy to get there?
100% fine with him starting the game. He's incredibly exciting to watch. At the same time, I feel like I'm going to put this in a racing car metaphor. I feel like you've got this hot young kid and he's driving the Ferrari and he's cutting corners like harder than anybody's ever cut corners before, and he's just this amazing exciting thing, and it feels like there are slicks on the track and they're called Tommy John surgery. And he's just like,
dude, knock some wood.
Yeah.
Well,
we're not gonna hear,
because yeah, I feel like he's a ticking time bomb, and it's scary. I love watching him, but I'm like, oh, how long is this gonna last? Because there are so many other young, amazing pitchers who have come up. I don't know if you remember this guy. His name was Jacob deGrom. He was pretty freaking amazing for a number of years until he just flat out wasn't pitching at all, because your arm can't do that. I just worry, like, we've seen relievers do it. Paul Skeens could maybe pitch 5 years as a starter, then become the most dominant closer ever for another 15 years. Maybe that's a route, and that would be really fun to watch. But it's really hard to imagine him continuing on, because the only people who have done stuff like that were named Nolan Ryan, and there was one. And maybe he's the next, maybe he is that kind of unicorn, but there's very little evidence to suggest that he is. There's no
You're
sort
not
of
alone in your
scientifically
concern,
sound
Johnny.
thinking to think he is.
You're
But
not alone
man,
in
is
your
he fun to watch.
concern.
And
And
he's
that's
so
ex-
much fun to
Really is.
watch. And
And that's
definitely
exactly why
start
he should be starting the All-Star game.
Yes,
right?
exactly,
Sell,
exactly,
sell,
yeah.
sell that youthful talent, that excitement. That's how you generate excitement around a freaking showcase game,
Yeah.
right?
It's the
Heck
Vladdy and the
yeah.
home run derby thing. Like, yeah, bring Vladdy into the
Absolutely.
home run derby. Everybody will love it. You know, it's like a kid who hits bombs. Yes, please, more of this.
And Jen, I mean, as a Blue Jays fan and as someone who follows the Jays like yourself, we're well aware of highly hyped pitchers and what it can do mentally to a guy. I mean, I talk about this, I feel like, all the time, but we watched Nate Pearson go on the MLB network and answer questions about his Hall of Fame induction. So there is a lot of pressure when you're in that hyped realm of prospect. And have you been impressed with how well Paul Skeens has dealt with the spotlight?
Oh, incredibly impressed. Yes, absolutely. He doesn't seem phased by anything, right? Like the guy just went out there and from day one performed and performed in this manner that has the entire baseball world talking. So, kudos to him. Will he experience a sophomore slump? Maybe. I don't know. Will he blow out his arm? Maybe. I don't know. Doesn't even matter, right? Like that doesn't matter. Like just, from a pure enjoyment of the game and seeing a talent that does not come along very often. This is fabulous.
I couldn't agree more. And it's so crazy that you watch a guy like John Jones on Pittsburgh, who really, it would be what everyone in Pittsburgh is talking about if Paul Skeens didn't exist. And I mean, to have two guys of that age, that ilk, that ability, and what they bring to the mound, I mean, Pittsburgh could be a scary team in a couple of years. Do you look at the Pirates and think that, with some of this young talent, if they actually decided to spend some money, could you see Pittsburgh being a good team in a year or two?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, you draft well, you develop well, you go through years of agony and then, boom, right? Just like Baltimore, except Baltimore,
Yeah.
Baltimore's almost done it, they
Solely through the draft. Like, yeah.
right. But it's, but they're in a position to spend money if they want to, right? Because they're going to make the postseason. They're going to make the postseason for several seasons to come. And I take a look at these scenarios and I think, if the Blue Jays, if they're not going to be able to be competitive in 2025, and I have no idea, who knows, because we don't know who's going to be here in terms of the front office, the coaching staff, the players, and so on and so forth. If it's going to be bleak, then they need to get their act together. They need to draft, they need to get the prospects, they need to develop them. There needs to be something to look forward to.
Couldn't agree more. I just want to thank everyone in chat right now who has joined us. Really appreciate your patronage. Feel free to hit that like button, subscribe if you have not subscribed. This is episode 309 of Long Toss. We do this every single Sunday. Of course, I'm saying that after taking 2 weeks off from the long weekend and then being off in Seattle, taking in that Mariners Jays series. But 6 to 8 Eastern time every single Sunday. And Jen, I will start with you and just say thank you so much for roughing it through this one. I know that you are unhealthy, but you brought the fire and we needed that. For everyone who wants to follow you on Twitter, first I'm going to start with saying, don't you fucking say anything shitty about her not knowing baseball. She knows more than you do. But for those who want to follow you, what's your Twitter handle?
You can find me at baseball_Jen, and that is Jen with 2 N's.
Jen with 2 N's, and it's not underscore Jen_ball. I've learned that many times. I don't know how I keep making that mistake, but I'm like 3 for 3 in the last few times of doing it. So I'm really learning my lesson here. Going to our interim co-host, and for everyone in Long Toss right now, some good news. Adam Mack should be back Friday, fingers crossed, after the All-Star break. So it'll be nice to have Adam back. But Joel, you have filled in so admirably. Thank you so much. Any updates on the show and where you're at with your big writing career and all the stuff that you've had going your way so far?
Yeah, we had talking to like a really great actor. I can bring this up because we're talking to Kurt Russell about playing a role in it, and he kind of really will dictate a lot that has to go on with this show. So if we can lock that down, he's obviously got a baseball pass. His dad owned a team, so that's really an amazing element to be able to, you know, cross your fingers. He's on set right now shooting something else, and then afterwards, I already had one conversation, and it was amazing. It was really exceptional, and now we're really hopeful that he likes what we're bringing to the table when it comes to a baseball series, and really isn't too much competition out there for a baseball show right now. So that's the one thing
Well,
that's going to go in our way.
we're very excited, Joel, and I get messages about this quite often. So everyone's rooting for you, and you know, if you are in the chat right now and haven't watched Battered Bastards of Baseball, which is all about Kurt Russell's dad's team. What was Kurt Russell's? Bing Russell, right? Yeah, Bing Russell's team. He moved from Hollywood to Portland to run an independent team. It is fantastic. Battered Bastards of Baseball. Check it out. We will end on a tip of the hat to our producer extraordinaire playing a role on the panel today, Johnny Eaton. You're killing it, buddy. Do you feel like you have it down, paneling and producing?
Yeah, when someone has to drop out because of technical difficulties, I gotta be like pretty light on my feet. And I'm like, what are they saying while I'm doing stuff? But
Yeah.
it's fun, and you know, I'm really pleased that Jen and Joel are back because they're heavyweights, and they like
Yes.
I can space out and do techie stuff for a bit, and they like can totally carry this, and it's fantastic. So thank you two so much because you guys are awesome. And I'm just
And
like little old me doing my thing here.
hey, you're kicking butt, Johnny. And I will say, both Jen and Joel, I hope you know that every time you're not on this show, I get half a dozen messages saying how much you're missed. And I don't always pass it along. I try to, and then I'll forget. But I just want you to know you are truly appreciated on this panel, not just by me, which it runs deep my appreciation, but everyone in the listenership really enjoys your baseball takes and what you have to say. And we're very lucky you make time for us. So thank you very much. And on that, we're going to call it a night. So thank you very much to everyone. One last reminder to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not. We will see you Tuesday for Mailbag, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much.
Recording stopped.